In an upcoming big project, I want to use this kind of joint which is curved and looks like this or like this. And to make such joints, I bought a router bit set that's made exactly for that purpose. This set comes from ENT and I paid about 125 euros for it, for 3 excellent router bits. ENT has excellent written instructions on their website for this, but since I've never used such a set and never made such a joint before, I wanted to test it before I use it on the actual big project, because materials and costs for that are quite a bit more expensive. And while I'm testing, why not make it into a video and show you how this works. And since it worked quite well, I also have a few tips on how to achieve that. So let's break this apart again and begin. I started with some scrap woods, beech and oak for a little bit of contrast, some template material, and the same again, a little bit smaller. Next I need to make the so-called mother template, and it will have the shape that I'm looking for. So whatever, something like this. Or maybe something like this. Probably a good idea to write down what this template is.
Then cutting the templates out with the bandsaw or jigsaw, depending on the size joint you make. The cut surfaces then need to be sanded smooth with a drum sander or by hand. It should be one smooth surface in the end.
Next is making the brother and the sister template, and therefore I glue the mother template onto another piece of template material, in my case just plywood. Then I need the first bit from the set in the router table.
This bit has to cut all the way through in one pass, so it's a good idea to use thinner material, but also 10 mm shouldn't be a problem. It's important though to keep constant contact to the mother template.
Now I have a brother and a sister. As you can see, the templates don't fit together, there are big gaps, and that's because this flush trim bit made the curve of the brother template an offset curve from this. And that's why you need the bit with the big bearing for, to counteract on this. The distance from the bearing to the cutting edge is the same as the diameter of the small flush trim bit. So while the bearing rides along the curve of the brother template, the cutting edge actually travels the curve of the sister template, because it's the same offset as before, but in the other direction. Next step is to copy the shapes from the templates to the workpieces. The real flush trim bit for the sister template, flush trim bit with the big bearing for the brother template.
It's a good idea to remove most of the material before routing.
On the brother template I just forgot that the bit is not cutting on the edge of the template but 6 mm away from it, and I cut away too much material, but it's not a problem because I can just move it back and stick it on again and then it will work. So the smaller test piece fits perfectly, and on the bigger piece it fits really good here, but then there are some gaps. And I think the reason for that is the not really good material that I used for the templates. Just a piece of spruce for the mother template and poplar plywood for the other ones. Because as you can see, these small bearings of the rudder bits really tend to dig into soft wood. So I bought some HDF fiberboard, which is really hard, and duplicated the mother templates also for the smaller piece. And with these I can try again.
Making a joint like this actually doesn't require that much time.
So the fit on the small piece now is again perfect, and on the bigger piece, perfect as well. No gaps this time. Let's glue that together. Out of the clamps, it just needs a little bit more cleaning, and then we can take a look at that. Obviously, beech and oak don't really look that great together and have low contrast to each other. But the important thing is that the joint has 0 gaps and worked pretty nice. On the other hand, combining maple and beech looks great. And also here the joint is perfect except for one little spot right here. And that's exactly the spot where I ever so slightly lost contact when making the templates. So my conclusion to get this to work properly is to make good templates and use the right template material, because these router bits can only make a joint as precise as the templates are. And therefore I think you should use birch plywood, or even better MDF or HDF, in the thickness something between 3 and 10 millimeters. I used 3 millimeter HDF because that was the only thing available at the moment. It was almost too thin because the bearings didn't quite make full contact on the thickness. So something between 4 and 6 millimeters should be perfect. And the other thing is to never lose contact to the mother template when making the other templates, and have a good steady pressure onto the router table. And if you do such a joint with a handheld router, not a router table, you actually don't really need this special bit. If you have a guide bushing, that provides the same offset to another bit as the size of flush trim bit you have. It will work, but this set just takes all the guesswork out of it and ensures that it works. For me, I think it was totally worth this little investment, especially for the big project I want to use it for, if it works there as well. But I have one point of criticism, which is this little tray that these bits come in. I mean, it's nice for displaying in a store, but the size now is just ridiculous for storage. But that's not too bad. The actual thing is that it holds the router bits so good that it's really difficult to get these out without hurting yourself. Impossible for the small one. There I really have to use an Allen key and press it out from behind. The quality of these ENT router bits is excellent, but this tray needs a little bit of work. The purpose of this video is this set comes from ENT and I paid about 125. ENT has excellent written instructions for this on their website and since it worked quite well, I also have a few tips how to get it work good. No. Pro tip, don't stick the double-sided tape on the wrong side. Double-sided tape is working. But I have one other point of criticism.